Let's talk money.
I don't have your money.
I know I'd be a lot happier with some extra cash.
Is this about money?
Obviously, this is all about money.
Oh, man, we got bills to pay, buddy.
With practical tips and a focus on Scripture, let's talk money. With Dave and Reb. From More Than Enough. Real conversations about money for real people. Let's talk money.
Are you ready to talk money, Reb?
I'm ready to talk money. I'm just pointing out something on our sheet. You got it? You're
right on top of it.
Good.
On the way in the show, Rebecca's changing the script. No, just kidding. So, welcome. This is the show.
If you want to know, we don't script everything, but I do have notes that we try and follow.
We have pieces of paper, and if you're watching on YouTube, you would see that.
Yes.
That we have pieces of paper on the table.
Yeah,
so thanks for pointing that out.
All right. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Yes, we got the studio full again with our tax team. We're just, if you want the intro to find out who they are, you have to go back to the show in December. So all in unison now, say good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Awesome. So welcome to the show.
Dave has sung in a choir for the fall, and so he likes doing things as a conductor now.
No, that is not true. That is not. I do not want the job of a conductor. We are totally off track this morning. We're talking about taxes. It's tax talk today.
Tax talk.
That's a triple alliteration, something or other.
I don't know.
Tax talk today.
Tax talk today. Oh my goodness.
So a little bit of housekeeping. I want to give a real big shout out to a new sponsor that we have in Joanne Jehu. She's one of our financial advisor partners that we have, and
she's
Joanne's sponsoring today's show.
Yeah.
And,
so thank you very much, Joanne.
Thank you, Joanna. Yeah. And if you're first time on the show, then welcome. Thank you for listening in. If you are a long-time listener, then you're finding the show on one of the many podcasting platforms or morethanenough.ca. I had somebody just last week reach out to her. We were talking, and he says, oh, by the way, we did a show on fraud last fall, and it was specifically a little bit more to say, detecting fraud and protecting. We had a 20-minute conversation about fraud, and he's like 22. He's a really young guy. Right into technology. And so thank you. We love that feedback. We love to kind of get into that. And if it generates some questions, we also like to answer them and call the office.
There is a never ending stream of things that we can talk about money.
Yeah.
So today, as I am reminded again, it is not Christmas any longer, so we can talk taxes in January because tax season is coming. There are deadlines. End of February, as I learned recently, all kinds of deadlines coming up in the months ahead. So we're just going to dig in. But I do want to say that there's an infamous scripture verse around taxes, one of them in Matthew 22, that the Pharisees went out and laid plans to trap Jesus in his words. They sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians. Teacher, they said, we know that you are a man of integrity and you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. You aren't swayed by others because you pay no attention to who they are. We could have a whole conversation about what they just said. But anyway, tell us then, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not? But Jesus, knowing their evil intent, said, you hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me? So we don't want anyone coming to our office saying that to our tax team. We don't want you to say that. But Jesus says to them, show me the coin used for paying the tax. And they brought him a denarius. And he asked them, whose image is this? And whose inscription? Caesar's, they replied. Then he said to them, so give back to Caesar what's Caesar's and to God what is God's. When they heard this, they were amazed. So they left him and went their way. We could do a whole show just on
I just wonder, though, did they go and pay their taxes?
Well,
did they go away to pay their taxes?
I would think so. Yeah. They had to. I mean, there was a lot of tax they had a temple tax. They had the tax to Caesar. So there's a lot of things about that story. But we just want to encourage listeners today that tax season will be upon us sooner than later, and we do have to prepare. And that's one of the things we want to talk about today. In December, at the end of the show, you had all given us your, what is one thing we could do for you? when people come to our office and say, please do our taxes. And Destiny, you said a summary would be great. Like if you could provide a summary, like what did you pay in hydro all year? What did you pay for charitable?
And we actually have more than enough have a list so to guide you so that if you're like, I don't know what to summarize, hey, we've got a list that we can send out, and everybody's nodding their heads because we work hard together on that. Okay, what do we need? A lot of that is compliance, right?
So yes, and Stephen said, like the folder. If you can do the folder all year and have it ready to go and you hand to me and everything's in there, like that is just a gift. It's think of it as giving gifts, like maybe gold, frankincense, and myrrh. I don't know. Your tax folder, your summary, and then bronze is, take responsibility and understand that this is a responsibility as a Canadian citizen in our nation. We have to own it. We can't leave it to anybody else. And you said something that was really interesting, and you said, don't fight the system. We can actually have that attitude in us that rails against, well, this just isn't fair. Well, yeah, but it is what it is. Like, what can you do?
There are other avenues. If there's something you feel is unfair that you can do, avoiding paying your taxes is probably not the right one. Right. And then, and I know that the scripture verse, maybe we take it out of context sometimes because there's a lot in what Jesus says, give to Caesar what's Caesar's and to God what's God's. There's a lot that we could talk about in there, but essentially, I remember, Bron, you saying to me once, next to paying your mortgage, paying your tax bill is like the highest responsibility we have as Canadians, and we can't avoid it. We can't put our heads in the sand. So today we do want to talk about that preparedness, the follow through. What are some things that we need to know for this tax season? So I don't know who wants to start. Maybe Stephen. Destiny's like, Stephen. Yes.
I would just, to start, I'd like to warn people that late filings this year is going to cost a lot more than previous years.
Right.
So you're really going to have to make sure that you have all your stuff put together, sent to your accountant before the deadlines. Earlier, the better.
And what is that? Do you know that how it's increased? Like, is it up a percent or?
It's up a couple percent. It kind of went with inflation. So.
Okay.
So lots of an increase there. And you said something I want to pick up on that, Stephen. So there are some deadlines. Can you just review deadlines for us? Because that's really important.
So end of February, it's a leap year. So February 29th this year, T4s, T5s, T4As, pretty well your T-slips are due.
So if you're a business and you're on the submitting part, that's your deadline. But also as a recipient, I can expect my T4 to be in my hand at the very latest on the 29th of February.
Yes. Or if it's mailed to you, it might be a little later,
right, but
close to that time. Your RSP deadline is going to be around that time too. So for any individuals that have some extra money, to put in your RSP is always a good plan to reduce your taxes for the upcoming year. For this year.
That may warrant a conversation ahead of time.
Yes.
Right? A little bit of tax planning to go, okay, do I buy RSPs before the end of February, or does it not make a difference and I should be using other mechanisms in terms of my tax return? So,
yeah. And then that brings us to the April 30th deadline for your personal income taxes.
Right. So that's all of us in terms of personal income tax. That's when we're on the 28th of April and looking for someone to do our tax return on time because it's going to cost us money if it doesn't get done.
I would suggest having it to us way before that because we've got a pile of them.
I remember he has 2 children at home that keep him up at night in general. So April, we want to be nice to Stephen in April. Yes.
And Bron and Destiny.
Okay, yes. I'm very sensitive to the young father in the room. So but I do want to say this because Destiny, I just called up an email you and I had an interaction with about the late filing fee. And the one thing you said in it, even if you know you have a balance due and you don't believe you can pay it all, please file by the deadline. Because, and why is that? Like, why can't we just bury our head in sand and say, oh, well, I owe the money, it's no big deal?
Well, I think it's the main thing is what you highlighted from our December show is taking that accountability, your responsibility. So not only to avoid having a late fee for filing late, but if in filing you owe the government, there will be an additional fee tacked onto that people want to avoid. So sticking your head in the sand may feel a little comfortable because like a child under the blanket, if I can't see you, you can't hurt me. But you're still hurting yourself in the long run. So it makes sense, even if you don't know or you don't have the money to pay, you think you're going to end up owing anyway, still file because it's easier to do a reassessment if necessary than to have to incur unnecessary late fees and penalties for what's owing and for late filing. Just try to avoid that at all costs, because if you're in a financial bind, that's just going to put you, yes, it's going to magnify it.
Because I'm just reading, there's a 5% of your 2022 balance owing is the penalty, plus an additional 1% for each month. That you don't want to be burying your head in the sand for months
at all. And it comes down.
So just so I'm clear, because I'm a little bit the slow one here. So if you file late, there is an additional late filing fee on top of, now if it takes you 3 months or 6 months to actually pay that, then that's compounding on top. But if you owe, or if you're expecting money back and you file late, you're going to lose some of that money that you would have gotten, but you gave it away because you just simply filed late. So to me, that, I like to be the positive and going, hey, wait a minute, if I'm getting a return, wait a minute, you're going to take some of my return away because I filed late? Because I've heard that quite often. Well, I always get money back, so I don't really need to file on time. And you're saying, no, file on time because they're going to charge you that late fee.
Because there could be a surprise that maybe you owe, or something's happened that's changed your story.
And if I can add to that too, just for those people, there are genuinely some people who life has been so hard and they have evidence. They're able to show the proof of the hardship. There is ways you can make an appeal to CRA, and we are happy to help you with that. To make the appeal to say that I want to request that I have an exemption from the penalties and the fees because of hardship. And as long as it's genuine and we can show them where that hardship came about, then that is the route for those people, again, who have genuinely been through hardship, and that hardship has maybe consumed your thoughts and thus pushing the filing process into a place where it wasn't a priority for you.
Right.
CRA is a group of people who they have compassion and understanding, but just to ignore them altogether, that's a different thing.
And Brian, can you speak to, just for a brief moment, do we need to be afraid of CRA? Can we just talk about that for a second?
Well, it's never a good thing to have fear of that, right? We don't want to be a slave to fear, for sure. But lots of people do have anxiety around that. And my recommendation for most people is to keep the lines of communication open. And as Destiny was pointed out, let's not put our heads in the sand. Let's face what we need to do. And I think the best course of action is to be upfront, and if you receive a letter, then let's get the right response to that in the right time frame. And so it's important to keep stay one with them, because essentially they just have a job to do, and I know that sometimes they miss the mark sometimes on that because of different demands and things like that. But essentially, they're just doing their job, and we just need to try to be as accommodating as possible with that. And I know for some people that's really a difficult thing because they don't have that right mindset or whatever. But my recommendation is let's make sure that we stay in communication with them.
You know, I'm thinking about that, and we are in January. So, you know, one of the things that increases the anxiety, as we all know, is the deadline. So some of us will respond positively to a deadline. I won't think about it till 2 weeks before, but then I'm all in. Like, I'm focused 100% to kind of get it done by the deadline. That creates a certain amount of anxiety, but we are in January. And so one of the reasons we wanted to talk in January is we do have a little bit of margin here. So getting this to the priority, you know, to the top of the list now and saying, what do I need? You know, even reaching out to the office and saying, what do I need to send you? Again, we'll send you the list. All right, I'm going to collect these documents, and making your own deadline by, say, the end of January. I'm going to have all these documents collected, and then that gives, okay, there's February, and then there's March.
Well, and sometimes
we
have to wait for the receipts or whatever to come in. But
to start the process early helps to relieve some of that anxiety because I know in my world, when I don't know what to do, then I don't do anything, right? So I say, I don't know what to collect. I guess I'll just leave it. And then all of a sudden the deadline's here. And then, there was a list. Shoot, I should have had that months ago, right? Again, how many times have we heard, I didn't know I needed that months ago. In my world, in the mortgage world, that's kind of where I hear it. So, so interesting.
So, Destiny, you had mentioned a season in your life when we were talking before, just about how you invited Jesus just to walk with you in it, because we were saying before we started press record this morning that, you know, there are people who have ADHD or some mental struggles, and for them collecting documents is just like uber stressful. We actually did some shows with our sister-in-law, Babs. I'll have those in the show notes today, just to be an encouragement, some things you can do to overcome so you can, you know, do some concerted things to get the receipts and documents in the folder. But what did you do? Like that, inviting Christ into that experience. It wasn't necessarily about money, but can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it wasn't about money, but the same principle applies when you feel squeezed in life with anything, whatever it is, money, taxes, relationships, whatever the scenario is. It is easy for our focus to immediately shift from rejoicing to anxiety. And you no longer have a drive to prioritize or give attention to that thing, because when you think of that thing, it's weighty. And because I was in a season that I had to be not just physically, but mentally present to do what God had called me to do, I had to cry out to God. I said, I need to see Jesus in this so that I don't step into disobedience and outside of his will. And I said that several mornings for several weeks. And I kid you not, I don't know how God did it, but it was supernatural. But my whole perspective shifted when I went into the environment, when I went among the people. I had a lighter countenance about me. My heart shifted. So I was able to see Jesus in the situation that didn't bring me joy, but I was able to also, as a result of him shifting my perspective, take the ownership that was mine and faithfully steward what he had assigned me to and do what I needed to do. Had I had not been able to see Jesus, I would have kept my head in the sand.
Like, was it just a sense of knowing, he's in this with me? Was that what that was like?
It was a sense, but there was a peace. There was literally a peace, and there was the grace of God carrying me, where I can see the past 3-4 weeks, I had anxiety and heavy-heartedness, and I didn't want to even show up. But I still showed up, and it's as if he was guiding my foot into the room every time. And I was more communicative. I was present, emotionally, mentally, spiritually present and engaged, and I stewarded the assignment.
And the reason I have you mention that is because for some folks, we put our finances in a box apart from our relationship with Christ. And even in this tax preparedness stuff, like, invite him in. Because I mean, I've been hearing that message from you, Bron, for a long time. Like, what does that look like when we invite him in to our tax journey?
Right. I just to build on that, I think it's a simpler thing. You know, you are handing everything over to him, and ultimately he has it all in control. And he, it says in the Bible, he's got it all, and that means all. And that includes the, everything that we're living with here. And that's the tax part and all the finance part. So he's in that. So I totally support what Destiny is saying. We have to invite Jesus to walk with us, heal our pain. I mean, everybody has issues. Everybody's got different emotions attached to so many different topics. So
tax included.
Tax included. So we all need help along the way, and it's not easy. No. So I support the idea of inviting Jesus into that walk.
So when Stephen and our tax team, Destiny Braun, sends an email to you and says, please collect this for us, we need this. You can just take
It is sent in love.
It is, and you can take a deep breath and literally, I know for some this may sound silly. I don't know, but
absolutely not.
You take a deep breath and say, Jesus, like, this is gonna put me under the table today, but will you help me? Can you help me find the document? And I'm gonna just quickly tell this story. When my brother passed away, I don't know, 21 years ago, I guess, in March. 22 years ago, I guess. Wow. My sister-in-law was left with 3 children and a farm to run. And it happened in March. So they were heading into the season of preparing the land. And anyway, she did not know where a lot of the documents were that were needed to take care of the farm, for taxation, like all of that. And she'd pray every day, Lord, show me. And he would. Every day, he would tell her where it was or what to do. And it was that intimate and that detailed. And she'd go and open the filing cabinet, pick up the folder, and there it was that she needed it.
And I want to honor your brother in that, because
he did have it organized.
This is part of the story. This is, and nobody knew that he would pass away. It was a car accident, but the year before, we had conversations, and his mind was set on putting his house in order and making sure that things were right. And so those documents were in there. And we look back now and we see the hand of the Lord in that. Nobody, he didn't know that there was going to be a car accident like that. But he was hearing the word of the Lord to say, hey, you got to get these things organized. You got to get so he was looking at their entire operation and had went through the process of organizing it and speaking to my sister-in-law also had a group of advisors that were very aware of the entire situation and guided her through, which again is all of the Lord just caring.
I'm just realizing the legacy and the preparedness that he did for that to happen. And I'm thinking of the preparedness we're asking people to have in place. You may not die. We're not going to say that you're going to die this time.
We hope not.
We hope that you don't. But it's important to be prepared. And we don't say this lightly. We're not here to make your life harder, but it is a part. And it feels harder. Do you guys think it feels just a little bit harder this year? Like, I don't know, with coming out of the pandemic and all the inflation and all this talk about money, does some of this preparedness feel harder for Canadians, do you think?
I think so, because a lot of people right now are so focused on just surviving day to day. That's the reality for a lot of people, even people who may not be in the low income class. People are just day to day. I wake up this morning, God, help me to survive, provide, protect, maintain my family. So when you add now the necessity component of tax, it's a lot.
It is.
But God's grace is sufficient.
Yeah. And which is why we talk about inviting him in. Lord, help me. Like, if that's all you have to say. Lord, help me. Stephen wants more documents.
Okay, so I have a couple of practical things that I want to bounce off the tax team. So you guys have to give me like a thumbs up and a thumbs down, but verbally, of course, because we're in the podcast. So, in listening, Brian, you mentioned, and I think the idea of if I'm in that overwhelmed space, then asking for help from someone, or if you're on the other end where you're like, one of you 3, where, hey, this is not a stressful place for me. How can I help? Again, in the context of our spheres of influence and the people we know, just asking for help, and maybe on the other side, offering for help. So, a practical solution for those of you that are listening, if this is a happy spot for you, doesn't create anxiety, then maybe look around and see if there's somewhere where you can help, even just collecting documents or going through. And if it is an anxiety producing spot for you, then maybe letting someone else know, again, your trusted friend, this is your finances, to say, I need help before we get to more than enough. Is that a thumbs up? Is that a good idea?
There's thumbs up.
Yeah, all thumbs up on that.
So here's where Dave gets a little bit creative, because I was thinking, how you do those, food prep parties where everybody gets together and, they make meals for a month, and it's like, usually the girls are having a good old time, right? Because I haven't seen too many guys do that. But I was thinking, what about doing a tax prep party?
I don't know, Dave.
Well, look,
I like that. I do like that.
Eyes open, I like that.
How would that look? We got 3 minutes left.
I don't know how we can unpack that. We maybe just leave that bombshell right there and say, well, what would it look like to do a tax prep party?
I think it would sort of be like an April Fool's kind of thing, like April 1st, or in that week, the first week of April, have a get together and have your
and Stephen, what are you saying to that? How about March 1st?
I'm thinking midway through March, you're probably better off doing it.
So set in your calendar now, mid-March, say March 15th.
We're going to have a tax prep
party. We have no idea what that looks like, or we're going to leave that. But
I think it's a great idea, though, right after St. Patrick's Day.
Well, and I was thinking, as we were all sharing, Stephen and I had a meeting this past little while, and we sat down together, and I said, tell me what this means. And then I wrote it up, and we were just doing process planning and stuff, right? It was so nice to do it with them. And I think the same goes for what if you just had a friend over for tea, someone who would be willing just to sit with you and has the list from More Than Enough and say, okay, go find this. Like, wouldn't that be helpful? I don't know, Stephen, just in the last minute, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, you could just check off the list together. Like, hey, you got your T4. I got my T4, right? Like, let's...
I don't know. It just
that could be a couples thing, right? Again, you could,
or girlfriends.
I'm picking up on the St. Patty's Day, so have some green beer on the table, and then we won't do that.
Not green beer.
Well, so.
Or kombucha from Carlington Booch. Okay, maybe we'll get them
a little plug into the.
Yeah, we'll put Carlington Booch with the green.
All right, we'll wrap up on that. Thank you for indulging me in my idea of a tax prep party. We'll see where
I like it, though, David.
There you go. Thank you all for coming in. So appreciate it.
And thank you to Joanne Jehu for sponsoring our show today. Yeah, Father, thank you so much for these beautiful people, Bron, Stephen, and Destiny, who serve faithfully you and your people and those who come for tax work at More Than Enough. We thank you that you give us a privilege of navigating hard things with you. We don't do it alone, and we're so grateful. And I just pray all of this and give you praise, Jesus. Amen.
So we're going to shout out to Joanne Jehu and maybe a last shout out just to say you are not alone. We're here at More Than Enough. There's the podcast. There's people that you have surrounded you, and you can join us next time when we talk money.
Let's Talk Money is a division of More Than Enough Financial Fitness, where God is transforming hearts and bringing hope for today and freedom for tomorrow. For more information or to comment on today's show, please visit morethanenough.ca.